Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I kick myself every time I think about how I've mishandled my video games in the past. Now, many of us got video games when we were children. Either we got them for our birthdays, we got them for our graduations, holidays, Christmas, whatever the case may be. And when you were younger, you didn't really understand what you had, so to speak. You were just happy to have the game, have the console, and play it. And you weren't really thinking about the future. You weren't thinking about how much you might want to play it later on down the road because, at least at the time that I was growing up, you were always looking for the next console, the next version, and you were okay with parting ways with the older console to be able to get your hands on the newer console. But now, here as an adult, years later, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking about all the consoles that I burned through, all of the games, everything that I've lost in the different phases of life. And I'm just upset. I almost want to kick myself when I think about how many amazing consoles and games and titles I've probably just let either go in the trash or have given away or let family members just straight out take from me because they borrowed it and never gave it back. What brought these feelings on? Well, recently, my mom, she asked me to, swing by her house because I guess she was doing some cleaning and she said that she had found a bunch of my old stuff. So that always gets me excited because, whenever you can get something from your childhood, you get excited, right? Whether it's old photos, maybe an old report card, maybe an old essay that you wrote. I mean, maybe that doesn't excite everyone, but for me, I find that stuff interesting. But most importantly, I'm always interested in some of my old gadgets that you might find, like my old Walkman, my old CD player, maybe even some old CDs or cassette tapes that I used to have. So when she told me that she had a bunch of stuff at the house that I needed to swing by and check out, of course, I jetted over there. Now, this time she did mention something different. She said, I think you also have some games here. So when she said games, I was like, games? Oh man, I'll be over there in 5 minutes, I mean, not literally, but I got over there as soon as I could. And when I got there, she had a big plastic bin of stuff. And most of it was photos, but there were a few CDs in there. And when I looked through them, it turns out that the games that she was referring to were the PC games that I had prior to actually getting my hands on some consoles. Because when I was younger, the only console that I really had was a Game Boy. And I only really had handhelds for like the first 4 or 5 years of me playing video games. So the only way that I was able to play like, console-based games was through emulation on my Windows 95 computer, freeroms.com. For those of you who know, if you know, I would go to freeroms.com, download ROMs and play them there. And then for the games that I wasn't emulating through free ROMs, I was playing like PC games. So I had like Sonic CD on like PC. I had Tomb Raider on PC. I had Earthworm Jim on PC. So when I got to her house that day, those were the games that she was referring to. She was referring to a bunch of like old school PC games that I had. And it was cool to see those PC games, but it still wasn't what I was expecting to see. I was hoping that when I got there, she would have still had my original black GameCube or my original PlayStation 1 or maybe my original N64. I was hoping she might have had all my PlayStation games, including Klonoa and, Mega Man X4 through 6, just a bunch of games that I had back then that I had always wondered where they went. And I lost video games during 2 phases of life. So I first lost all my video games when I initially went away to school. I left my home state and went away to college out of state. And not even thinking about it, I just left I don't even know what I was thinking, but I literally just left all my video games without thinking about it and just took off and went to school. I think I was just so excited and happy to be going away to school and living in another state that like video games were like way down at the bottom of my list. Like I wasn't even thinking about video games at that time. And it's crazy because at that time I had a lot of consoles. I was playing Dreamcast, so I had a bunch of Dreamcast games. I had a GameCube. I definitely had a PlayStation 1 and an N64. I think I may have still even had my Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. So I had a bunch of stuff. But around junior year of high school, I really started working a lot, and it really became about work, school, and friends, really. And really video games were only played, like, I only played video games enough to be competitive when I was playing against some of my other friends, because I had multiple friend groups. You have your friends at school, you have your friends like in your neighborhood, you have your friends like in other places you go, like if you went to church, you had church friends. So I had like 4 different pockets of friends. And so my gamer friends, I always wanted to make sure that my gaming skills were sharp enough to stay competitive when I got around my gaming friends. So I'm digressing. The first time I lost all my games was when I went away to college. I don't know what happened to all of those games, but they were gone. Like, just, I don't know. Like, I came home from college and they weren't even like mentioned. So I don't even know. Those games are long gone in the abyss. They're probably sitting in someone else's house right now. Someone else is thoroughly enjoying those games. The second time I lost my video games was when I was actually an undergrad, and it's crazy because when I left and went away to school, while away at school, I started buying video games again. So I bought like a bunch. I really didn't buy a ton at that time. I think at that time, the only video games I had was I bought a PlayStation 2. So I bought a PlayStation 2 Slim, and I only had a few games for the PlayStation 2 Slim. I think I had like Kingdom Hearts. I had Marvel vs. Capcom 2, of course. And I had like a couple of other PlayStation 2 games, because there was this gaming store that I went to in the Midwest, and they had a bunch of games. And I remember back then, and this is like, mind you, this is like early 2000s, right? I remember like, well, mid 2000s. I remember in the mid 2000s seeing that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was like 40 or 50 bucks or something. And I remember even back then thinking like, man, this game is expensive. Like, why is this game so expensive? So yeah, it's just crazy when I think back to it. But yeah, when I left school, that was the second time I lost all my games, because when I moved away from school, from where I was staying at school, I moved to a whole new place. I don't even think I came home right away, and all those games were lost. So like I said, I just want to kick myself every time I think about how many video games I've just let slip through my fingers, how careless I was with the consoles. And now here, that now that I've taken game collecting as serious as I have for the last, 6 or so, was more than that, for like the last 8 years or so, that I've been taking like game collecting more seriously, it's like, dang it, I wish I could go back and find those games. Let me know if this is you. Have you ever had those feelings? If you're a collector out there, if you're someone who collects video games, how many times do you think back to your childhood collection, or even like maybe your college collection, and you're like, dude, what the heck happened to those games? I'm interested to know your thoughts. Share your stories down below, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.